Welcome to Justice Losers, the podcast where we talk about entertainment media, namely movies, TVs, and comics. I'm your host, Preston, joined as always by my delightful co-host,
Batman.
Matt. What should people do?
Like, subscribe, and start a fight in the comments. Seek us out on social media and start a fight there. Facebook or Twitter at Justice Losers Pod. Instagram.
Or inform your friends about our presence.
They'll fight you. They'll do anything
They'll
to
fight you,
suppress us.
That's how you start fights. Start fights by showing us to your friends.
Exactly.
What are we talking about today?
Yeah, we talked about Preston's musical history a couple of weeks ago. It was a good episode.
Yeah.
And today I'm going to talk about how I like classical music and you're all stupid for not listening to it.
God damn it. So, how did it start?
In the beginning, I was born. The end. No. So I think we talked about this in your episode, but a lot of the first musical taste you develop is just subsumed from whatever your parents have around.
Yeah.
And my parents mostly listened to Bach and Beethoven and Mozart. That's what they played. Some of my earliest memories were that I really liked Beethoven's Ninth because my birthday is February 9th and the 9 matched up with the 9 and I thought that was so cool and I had no framework for thinking about the music, but I was like, yes, this is my favorite song. My mom likes to tell the story of when I was a really little baby, just a few months old. If they played Beethoven in the house, I would start crying. And if they played Bach, I would calm down and go, oh.
That is...
Oh.
Well, damn.
Yeah. And I don't know why that is. I don't know if that story is literally true or if it's just one anecdotal example or something.
Mm-hmm.
But Bach is pretty great and Beethoven's terrible. That's our lesson here today. No, that's not true. Beethoven's pretty cool too. But I have come to appreciate Bach more as I grew. I remember vividly it was Clementi sonatinas, which everyone who's played piano for a few years got into those.
Absolutely.
And I was just loving it. I think it was a combination. They're just kind of inane, nice little classical piano pieces. And I think it was a combination of, hey, this sounds like stuff that I grew up with, sort of. It's the same thing. It's a little more complex than the other stuff I'm playing. Yeah. And it's just pure music. You can think about what the music means. You're not trying to connect it to something outside of itself. And so that was kind of the thing where it flipped a switch. And I was like, okay, I found something where I can appreciate this. And I kept playing piano. And then my cousin came along and he changed everything. Because he's about 5 years older than me, maybe a little more than that. And he also played piano and trumpet. And so he's playing a lot of music. And when we'd see each other over the summer, we'd find a piano and we'd show each other what we're playing. And I'd show him what I'm writing, my just little first steps in composition. And he was very encouraging, and I appreciate that a lot, Jay.
You listening, Jay? You better be listening, Jay.
You're not listening, Jay. And he introduced me to guys like Chopin and Rachmaninov that my parents didn't go for. They were just Baroque and classical. All of a sudden my eyes were open because I'm starting to get into my preteen years and starting to be a teenager. And everything's so serious and I'm trying to be so emotional and I'm maturing and I'm coming of age as a man. And so guys like Chopin and Rachmaninov that are they're emotional and they're more capital R romantic, which is sort of just about the heroism and the nobility of the human spirit and stuff like that. Man, that really stuck out to me. I was like, this is so cool. And so I started getting into stuff like that. And then that kind of sets me on some different trajectories. Clearly
you're having there was an emotional connection with it.
Yeah.
So we had talked about this with mine. Would you listen to music to reflect your mood? If you were in an angry mood, would you listen to angry Rachmaninoff music? And if you were in a kind of a pleasant mood, you listen to nocturnes? Did you have kind of tone music, or was it just this music was just kind of a whole?
I think it was more of a whole. It was never I want to reflect my emotions. It's more I was really into sort of serious, tragic kind of music.
Okay.
Just for whatever reason, that was the emotion that could punch through just sort of the emotionalness of it and just get you to that chills moment. I like serious stuff. I like instrumental stuff. I tend not to even to this day stuff with lyrics very much. Not really an opera fan, not really a choral music fan.
What is it that off-puts you from that? Is it just explicitizing the emotion that you'd prefer more implicit?
I think so. I think for me, again, I think I've always been just a pure music guy. And I've sort of post facto explained that philosophically to myself by saying that music is the particular art that I think is best at cutting straight to sort of that chills moment, that transcendental feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And it clutters it up if you try to make it represent something or try to make it explicitly about something. It's just, it's something about the almost elementalness of the emotion and the fact that it almost can transcend emotion.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's kind of a raw feeling.
Yeah.
I get roughly the same feeling when I listen to, well, to go back to it, the second movement of Beethoven's Third Symphony. It's just this funeral march, and it's kind of slow and it goes along. And then at one point it sort of explodes out into just this 2-minute emotional sequence that's just absolutely hair raising.
Yeah.
It's really good. And it just sort of cuts right into my gut and it hits me with that feeling. And it's about the exact same feeling I get in the opening of Prokofiev's First Piano Concerto, which is this giant, joyous, ascending motif in the piano with the orchestra swirling around it. And it's pure joy versus pure tragedy, but there's an intersection there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just that it's joy tragedy, it's that it's that much raw emotion injected straight into my bloodstream. Learning violin led to probably the most transformational musical moment in my life. The first concert of the year, we played our little thing. It's just I think we played like a Mendelssohn string symphony or something. It was nice. And then we sat and we were going to listen to the good orchestra play their music. And they played the chamber arrangement of Shostakovich's 8th String Quartet. And boy, that is just a gut-wrenching work. I don't think I breathed for the entire 20 minutes of the performance. And the guy sitting next to me, who was like a soccer player he's not too serious about the music. He's just like, he and his friends had spent most of the concert on their phones. He turned to me afterwards like, I don't think he'd breathe either. And he's like, what? I didn't realize that music could sound like that.
Yeah.
And then there's movie music.
Yeah.
We should probably get back into that. So about this same time, middle school-ish, a little movie you might have heard of called The Dark Knight came out.
Yep.
And that was the first movie, not the first movie, Revenge of the Sith, actually. The Order 66 scene.
Yeah.
That was one of the first scenes I noticed the music. That and Padme's Ruminations.
Ruminations.
Actually.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. Anyway, Dark Knight was probably the first movie that came out where I noticed the music and had the means to go buy the soundtrack myself.
Mm-hmm.
So the track that got me is the one that plays at the end when he has his standoff with Two-Face and there's a family there, and it's sort of the slow building strings. And I was like, oh, okay, that's so cool. I'm just going to buy that soundtrack. And I bought that soundtrack and I listened to it over and over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Every single note is emblazoned in my soul. And it's pretty great. And it was like, okay, so I know John Williams, I know Hans Zimmer, and I know Howard Shore because Lord of the Rings is great. And so I just kind of branched out a little bit from there. It's never been as much a focus for me, but it's something that I have grown to pay attention to more in music, in movies. It's just what's the musical landscape, what's the emotions they're trying to get me to feel, and how's the music doing it. And then I'll buy soundtracks and use it for like, it's really good if I need to put myself in a particular zone.
So do you with soundtracks, when you're listening to it, do you view it, are you listening to it kind of in the framework of this is a classical piece, or do you kind of like mentally attach it to the movie where it is? Like Padme's Ruminations, do you see and imagine Padme and Anakin both crying across Coruscant, or do you kind of do you kind of listen to it how you would classical music, where this is a somber, like, betrayal, loss tone? That's
a very interesting question. I haven't thought of it in those terms before, but I think I have an answer. I don't think I'll ever listen to it as pure music.
Okay.
Because I realize that it is different. It's designed for a different thing. It's not music for music's sake. It's music for supplementing the emotions of a story sake.
Yeah.
Sort of in the same sense that opera or ballet music might be, which is why if I do listen to opera or ballet, I like to have like a synopsis pulled up so I can kind of follow along with what I'm supposed to be feeling.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I typically won't like see the particular scene. It's more of an impression.
Okay.
Of just like almost the colors of it.
Is it something that's subconscious, that things just catch your attention, or is it something that you're kind of like intentionally listening for?
I think I am usually actually just listening for the music.
Okay.
If it's kind of bland stuff, it just kind of, it's hard for me to pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
But if it is interesting or engaging, or if I'm trying to understand what it's doing, or if it's bad, like you said, sometimes if it's bad, you notice it.
Yeah.
Then I think I am actively paying attention, and I'm trying to just include it as part of my active watching for character development, for good writing. It's part of the whole package.
Yeah. Is that kind of where you like where you are now? Like, so you kind of talked through all that stuff. Is that kind of like that your landing pad of being 24-year-old Matt? Like, is that where you are right now?
So landing pad 24-year-old Matt has just like, he's got a broad range. I've got a lot of favorites. It kind of varies. I like Shostakovich, Dvorak, Rachmaninov, Prokofiev.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of varies day to day which one's going to be my favorite, if you ask me.
Okay. Is there anyone that you've noticed you go back to a lot? Like, you kind of just kind of like that constant through line, one from like really early on. Like I mentioned how Foo Fighters for me, regardless of my music taste at any point, like Foo Fighters is always going to be up there.
Yeah.
Is there any like particular, like not as like a composer, but like a symphony or something that just you always go back to every once in a while?
I don't know. I mean, a lot of my music listening at this particular point in my life is more exploratory.
Okay.
I'm trying to listen to new stuff and trying to fill in different gaps, but there are pieces I go back to. I've mentioned Beethoven's Third a couple of times. That one is, I go back to that one a lot. There's a piece I started listening to a few years ago that I still go back to pretty regularly. John of Damascus by a guy named Sergei Taneyev. Mozart's Requiem. That's one I'll go back to a lot. Everyone knows kind of the dramatic moments from that, but there's a lot of great music in there.
Yeah.
And then I guess some of those ones that have been stuck in my head since I was a baby, like the ones that my parents would play, the St. Matthew Passion, Bach, St. Matthew Passion, the B minor Mass, also Bach. A lot of Bach. Bach's great.
So you've been talking about the past 40 minutes about classical music and how like that stuff, like blah blah blah. You like Billie Eilish?
I do like some Billie Eilish.
Like it's so out there. And before we dig into this, what's your experience with non-classical, non-soundtrack musicians?
I mean, I kind of grew up mostly just listening to classical, and I guess I kind of got this subconscious and sometimes super conscious pretentiousness where I was like,
you?
What? That doesn't sound like me.
No.
Classical music and stuff in that realm has always done exactly what I need music to do for me.
Right.
It's just, I can appreciate it, sure, and I do appreciate some of that stuff on enough of a level to get along, but it's never felt like there was something missing from my musical experience that I needed to fill with something like that.
Okay. Billie Eilish is one. Didn't I introduce you to her?
No.
Ah!
We independently arrived at the conclusion that she's kind of a guilty pleasure for both of us, except we don't feel guilt anymore.
I don't
have to feel guilt about our musical tastes.
Yep. So is it just Billie Eilish for kind of like beyond like classical jazz?
At this point, yeah, but yeah. I'll go through phases. I had a bit of an Eminem phase in high school.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I kind of dig him. I like some of his music.
Yeah.
What spurred that?
He was one of the guys that my friends would listen to. And I guess I don't know if it was ever like I want to fit in with the gang, but it was more like, hey, these are my friends and I want to appreciate what they appreciate. And so I made a conscious effort to be like, okay, let's set this guy out of the all rap and all rock and all pop and everything is terrible. Let's try this guy a little bit.
Is there any songs here and there that you'd like so you drive in a car with me and I listen to music that is not your music realm,
right?
Is there any kind of songs that you're like, oh, that's kind of interesting, but like it's like kind of just below that threshold to pursue?
Glad you asked. I have a Spotify playlist for just this sort of thing.
Really?
It's not something I don't think at this point in my life, I don't think I'm ever actively going to pursue this sort of taste. I'll pick stuff up as it's there and I'll go back and I'll listen to some of this stuff. But I don't think it's ever going to give, at least the version of me that I am right now, I don't think it's ever going to give me what I need from music.
Right.
I guess I separate music into entertainment and experience. And for me, this stuff is always more on the entertainment side, and
Okay.
classical tends to be more on the experience side.
Okay.
But I mean, I'll put classical music on the background when I'm washing the dishes or whatever.
Yeah. Okay, I want to get into jazz.
Let's get into jazz. I think for me, jazz became quickly sort of that midsection, that midpoint between the entertainment and the experience, where it is more of a pure music sensibility. There's often not singing, although I do appreciate jazz singing. Give me some Billie Holiday all day long.
Oh yeah.
But it's typically more of a pure music thing. And I go for instrumental stuff. I like Coltrane. I like Miles Davis. But it's got that rhythm and that beat and that virtuosity and sort of that entertainment flavor to it also. And so I think that's probably why jazz has always kind of been in that, one of the things, it's what I'll put on in the car a lot of the time.
Yeah. What's your thesis on yourself? You did this to me.
Yes, that's true. I think that my big theory of art is that art is the appeal to the transcendent, and music is the one that can cut the most closely to that. And music exists on this entertainment experience spectrum, and the stuff on the experience end, I think, is more directly aimed at that transcendent experience. And so I think for me, I need music that is experience, that fills me with wonderful feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, good.
All right.
But I appreciate being entertained too.
Yeah.
I like MCU movies, but I like serious stuff.
Yeah. Oh, any recommendations? So let's say like, because it's really hard to recommend.
I should have thought about that.
That kind of stuff.
Let me come up with a couple of kind of varied ones here. Well, Shostakovich's 8th String Quartet. How about the Rachmaninov Isle of the Dead? And then I should probably get something a little bit older, some Bach. Maybe the Bach A minor violin concerto. Yeah. No, and if you want classical music recommendations, I can literally give you 1,000. Or I can give you 20, and based on which ones you like the best, I can give you 200.
Go to our Instagram. On the post, it's got Matt being music. All confused and looking at it. Go and ask for recommendations, and beyond that, like ask for any.
Tell me something you like, classical spirited, and I'll give you 100 recommendations. Yeah.
Ooh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you have particular movie scores you like, or if you've listened to certain pieces of classical music and you really like them, hit me up.
Yeah, do that. Go to that post, and comment, I liked blah, blah, blah. And Matt will respond, which means you need to download Instagram.
I have Instagram.
You need to log in on our Instagram account.
I'm logged in on our Instagram account. I've done all the things. I'm way ahead of you.
He's ahead of, yeah, he's there. He's ready. So yeah, put the comment on that post. And Matt will respond with a recommendation.
Absolutely.
Did you see our friend Tiercy's comment?
Yes. No. No Debussy.
Hey guys, Preston here. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. If you liked what you saw here, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you know when we upload these every Thursday. If you want to hear more, we have an unabridged version on Spotify, SoundCloud, iTunes, and any other podcast app. Check us out on Instagram at Justice Losers Pod. See you next week.